She wasn't supposed to wear that dress. The music was still playing, the lights were still flashing, and people were still laughing. Then the woman screamed. Not the kind of scream you hear at a fashion show, not excitement, not surprise, but of fear, raw, sudden, uncontrolled. The entire room froze. Cameras stopped clicking. Models stopped walking. Even the music cut out like something had gone wrong. All eyes turned to her, a wealthy woman, powerful, respected, the kind of person no one ignores. Her hands were shaking as she grabbed the fabric on her body, pulling at it like it was burning her skin. And then she said something no one could understand, something about the design. People started whispering. Some laughed nervously because just seconds ago, everyone had been laughing at the clothes on that runway. Nora's clothes, strange shapes, awkward cuts, colors that didn't belong together. They called it ridiculous. They called it funny. They called her a joke. But in that moment, no one was laughing anymore because across the room, someone else stood up. A man, quiet, watching. His face had changed completely, like he had just realized something no one else had. And then he slowly turned and walked out. No one stopped him. No one even noticed, except Nora, standing backstage, watching everything unfold like she had already seen it happen, because everyone laughed at Nora's designs until one outfit ruined a powerful man's life. And what no one in that room understood was that Nora wasn't joking at all. While the noise of confusion swallowed the hall, Nora did not move. She stood still, fingers lightly resting on a piece of fabric, her eyes fixed on the curtain separating her from the chaos she had just created, or maybe revealed. No panic, no surprise, just silence. The kind of silence that comes from someone who has seen something before it happens. Because in a city that never slowed down, where markets stretched for miles and voices filled the air from sunrise to night, Nora had always been different. She didn't talk much. She watched every street corner, every passing face, every small detail people ignored. She noticed patterns, not the kind you draw on paper, the kind that lived in people, the kind that followed them. That's where it started. A small tailoring shop, squeezed between louder, brighter businesses that pulled customers in with music and color. Nora's shop did neither. No loud signs, no shouting, no display to impress anyone. Just a narrow space filled with clothes that made no sense to the people who walked by. Sleeves too long, colors that clashed, shapes that looked wrong. People would stop, stare, and laugh. She must be joking. Who would wear this? Is this even fashion? The laughter spread easily. It always did. And Nora, she never argued, never explained. She simply listened with that same quiet expression, like their words didn't touch her at all. But not everyone laughed. Some people would step inside, slowly, carefully, their eyes scanning the room, not with amusement, but with unease. They didn't touch the clothes immediately, they studied them. As if they were trying to understand something deeper, something just out of reach. And sometimes those people would leave quickly, too quickly, without saying a word, as if staying any longer might reveal something they weren't ready to see. Others stayed, and those were the ones who whispered late in the evening, when the city softened, when the noise faded into distant echoes. They would come back, quiet footsteps, low voices, asking Nora for something specific, not stylish, not trendy, something else. And Nora would listen carefully, watching their faces the same way she watched everything else. Then she would begin, cutting fabric with slow precision, choosing colors no one expected, stitching pieces together in ways that looked completely wrong until the final result sat in front of them. Strange, uncomfortable, almost unsettling, and every single time there was a moment, a pause, where the person would stare at the outfit and something in their expression would shift, just slightly, like recognition, like fear, but they would still take it. They always did, because no matter how strange the designs looked, there was something about them, something hidden in the stitching, in the patterns, in the way the fabric came together, something nobody could explain, something nobody fully understood, but it was there, and deep down, even the ones who laughed the loudest could feel it. There was something in Nora's designs, something waiting to be seen, something no one was ready for yet. The stories didn't stop, they multiplied. At first, they were scattered, easy to ignore, easy to laugh away. But slowly, they began to follow a pattern. A trader who wore one of Nora's oddly patterned shirts suddenly found himself in the middle of a dispute that exposed secrets he thought were buried. A young woman who bought a mismatched dress received unexpected news that forced her to return to a past she had been avoiding. A driver who laughed while buying a crooked jacket narrowly escaped an accident but lost something else in the process. Small events, different situations, no clear connection except one. They had all worn Nora's clothes. Still, people dismissed it. They had to, because nothing about it was obvious, enough to prove anything. No one could point to the clothes and say, this caused it. So they called it coincidence, bad luck, good luck, timing, anything that made it feel normal, anything that kept things simple. But here's the strange part: the people it happened to stopped laughing completely. They didn't joke about Nora anymore. They didn't mock her designs. In fact, most of them avoided her shop entirely after that. If her name came up in conversation, their reactions were quick, short, much uncomfortable, like they were trying to move past it. Sadiq, a well-known trader in the city, respected, calculated, the kind of man who never made careless decisions. He didn't believe in rumors, didn't believe in superstition, and he definitely didn't believe in a quiet designer who stitched confusion into fabric. The first time he stepped into Nora's shop, it wasn't curiosity, it was mockery. He stood at the entrance longer than most, arms crossed, scanning the clothes like he was trying to understand how something so wrong could exist. Then he laughed. This is what people are talking about. He picked up a shirt, crooked collar, patterns that didn't match, one sleeve slightly longer than the other. He said. Nora looked up. For a moment, just a moment, their eyes met, and something shifted, so slight it could have been missed. Ah, but it was there. A pause, longer than necessary. Then she nodded. No argument, no warning, just quiet acceptance. And she began walking. When he reached the day, something changed. It started small, a disagreement. One of his workers, someone who had been with him for years, suddenly questioned the transaction. It escalated quickly. Voices rose, accusations followed, and before Sadiq could control it, others joined in. Details surfaced, numbers didn't match, records were questioned, things that had been buried, carefully hidden over time, started coming to light, and then it spread. By evening, people were talking, not just about the argument, but about what it revealed. By night, the story had grown, and by morning, it was everywhere. Sadiq's name no longer carried respect the same way. Now it carried doubt, suspicion, and something else, something heavier. He tried to fix it, tried to silence it, tried to regain control. But every move he made seemed to make things worse. More details emerged, more people spoke, and more cracks appeared in the image he had built for years. And through it all, there was one detail people couldn't ignore, one detail that kept returning, no matter how much they tried to dismiss it. The shot, that strange, uneven, ridiculous shot, because on the day everything began to fall apart, Sadiq had worn it. At first, no one said it out loud. It stayed in whispers, inside conversations, in unfinished sentences, but eventually someone did. By now, the city had learned how to speak about Nora carefully, because whether they believed it or not, no one wanted to be completely wrong about her. And yet, there was one man who didn't care, not about quiet warnings hidden in fabric. His name carried weight long before he ever stepped near Nora's world. Chief Adewale, a man whose influence stretched far beyond the city, business, politics, the kind of man who didn't just enter rooms, he controlled them. People stood when he arrived, conversation shifted when he spoke, and most importantly, he believed in one thing above all else: control. So when Nora's name reached him, he didn't respond with curiosity, he responded with irritation. Clothes that predict things? He laughed publicly at a gathering filled with people who watched his every reaction. A tailor telling the future? More laughter, louder this time. That is how fear spreads, he continued. People stopped thinking. Heads nodded, voices agreed. And just like that, he turned Nora back into a joke, at least on the surface. But power doesn't ignore things completely. It studies them. Because even in his dismissal, there was something else. Not belief, but doubt. The kind that doesn't speak, but stays. Because too many stories were consistent, too many outcomes felt connected. And men like Adewale didn't rise by ignoring patterns, they rose by understanding them. So days later, without announcement, a message was sent through someone else, someone who knew how to move without being seen. The request was simple: a custom design, no details, just a demand, hidden as a request. And when the message reached Nora, for the first time in a long time, she didn't respond immediately. She stood still, the room around her quiet, her hands resting on unfinished fabric, and something shifted. Not fear, not confusion, something deeper: recognition, like a pattern she had seen before, but hoped she wouldn't. The person delivering the message waited, expecting the usual: a nod, a quiet acceptance, but it didn't come. Instead, Nora turned away, slowly, walked to the corner of her shop, where the fabrics were different, untouched, reserved. Her eyes settled there, lingering longer than they should, and for a moment, it looked like she would refuse, like she would finally say no, because this was different. This wasn't someone curious. This wasn't someone seeking answers, or someone who believed nothing existed beyond his control. And that made him dangerous, not because of who he was, but because of what he might do if he saw something he didn't like. The silence stretched. The messenger shifted slightly, waiting. And then Nora exhaled, soft, barely noticeable, but it carried weight because something in her had already decided. She almost refused, but then she changed her mind. She turned back, walked to her table, and began. No questions, no conditions, just movement, slow, precise, certain, like every step had already been mapped out. But this time, it was different. The fabric she chose was not like the others: darker, heavier, the patterns more complex, less obvious, as if they were hiding something deeper beneath the surface. And as she walked, There were moments, small pauses, barely visible, where her hands would stop just for a second before continuing, as if she was measuring something carefully. Not the cloth, something else. Because this design was not like the others. This one carried weight, more than any piece she had made before, more than anything the city had ever seen. And somewhere deep within that process, one truth settled quietly into place. This was not just another message. This was something bigger, something that would not stay hidden, something that would not pass quietly. Because when the outfit was finished, Nora didn't call.
If you have watched up till this point, you can't afford to miss what would happen to Chief Ade. Don't miss part 2. Subscribe.